to call upon Mr. Pankaj Patel, President, FICCI and Chairman and Managing Director, Cadila Healthcare. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Mittal, Secretary, Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr.
Well, thank you all for being with us this morning. It's wonderful to have all the dignitaries, the speakers, and of course, all business represented out here. I think our good friend Viraf, who calls himself Giraffe, was just mentioning about this becoming an adult. Now, the real reason and the real fact of becoming an adult is that not only has FICCI Frames grown over 18 years, but so has the industry. And the important point there is that not only do you come back every year, but the fact that we actually have grown to become a much more mature market, a much more mature event that actually happens. And the great thing about this event is it's completely and purely business. So it's really good to see all the people who are in the actual media and entertainment industry, who come here every year, who talk to each other, who do their deals, and who actually make this thing actually happen to whatever it is today, a $25,000 billion industry is what is expected and is going to. This is fabulous. This is really, really very big. And with registering a 9% growth, even higher than what the country registers, we have seen this actually happen in the last few years. So as we get ourselves into this, we will now, of course, begin with lighting the lamp. We had a wonderful lady who was to join us. She will, I guess, come in as we do, but has she come? Wow, that's timing. That is timing. Oh. Yes, wonderful. So we can all go straight and light the lamp. Thank you, ma'am, for joining us. Thank you for being with us. And do come up on stage straight away. And we'll start with the lighting of the lamp. Please come. Thank you very much. We're proud to welcome Jacqueline with us here this morning. Thank you, ma'am, for being with us. Let's all welcome her, and we can all now light the lamp. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Could we come back to the dais, please? Thank you very much. May I now call upon Mr. Pankaj Patel, President FICCI and Chairman and Managing Director, Cadila Healthcare, to deliver the welcome address. Thank you, Mr. Patel, for this. Thank you. Please.
A very good morning. Mr. Ajay Mittal, Secretary, Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, Government of India. His Excellency Mr. Nadir Patel, High Commissioner of Canada to India. His Excellency Mr. John Terry, Mayor of Toronto, Canada. Our own Mr. Uday Shankar, Chairman, FICCI Media and Entertainment Committee and Chairman and CEO, Star India. Mr. Rakeysh Om Prakash Mehra, Chairman, FICCI Film Forum and Director and Founder of ROMP Private Limited. Our special guest, Ms. Jacqueline Fernandez. Mr. Sudhanshu Pandey, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Commerce. Mr. Didar Singh, invited guests, speakers, and our colleagues and friends from Canada. Good morning and welcome to the 18th milestone of FICCI Frames, Asia's only platform which gives equal voice to all multifarious arms of Indian media and entertainment industry. A special welcome to our friends from Canada, our partner country for this year. As you all know, a few years ago, the Indian and Canadian government signed a crucial audiovisual cooperation treaty that helps producers from both the countries exchange technical, artistic, and marketing expertise. Art and culture is a catalyst of bilateral bonds, and we are delighted by the presence of the Canadian delegation this time. It has been 18 years since we started out, and what a journey it has been. Of landmark of policies reached, you just had audiovisual depicting that. Impending measures have been tabled. Challenges have been overcome. Market trends analyzed, and most importantly, relationship being built and strengthened. These relationships over the years have transformed the media and entertainment landscape of the country and placed India firmly on the world map. With the Indian entertainment industry breaking new ground, evolving and reinventing itself, FICCI Frame has been a steady and constant cheerleader, supporting the industry with advice, wisdom, caution, and cheering it with applause. In fact, FICCI Frame has been India's M&E most accurate barometer. The platform has reflected the industry's mood each year and measured success and failure through its deliberation and predicted what is to come. We have seen some landmark speeches by visionaries at this very podium. Frames has been the fulcrum close to 2 decades now. Ever since the film industry was granted industry status, and even now when we have finished a century or more in cinema. The Indian media and entertainment industry has been the real melting pot of the global digital revolution. No other industry has been as affected and as effective in adapting the digital economy as the M&A industry is. Amongst all the sectors, it is media consumption which is the most dynamic force on digital platform. Consumer tastes have changed radically, and the concept of linear and traditional media is long gone. Young people watch everything online. Most of us get our news on the social media and so on and so forth. Even opinions are shared, liked, and shaped on Twitter or Facebook, and the world is as it exists no more. It's time for us to accept and work on a 360-degree transformation in our businesses. Even as I say This is the question that looms large. How do we maximize this new media in terms of monetization, outreach, and utility? And for this, we need a clear-cut policy framework delineating IPR and content ownership laws, infrastructure development in telecom technologies with high-speed internet and access to far-flung reaches of the country, a user monitoring system which could graduate into a full-fledged rating currency, a transformation towards subscription on the part of the consumer. In fact, that is why the theme of this year's FICCI frame has been thoughtfully titled as Digital Divide or Dividend. Unless we can completely master this digital wave, we won't reap the real dividend. The need of the hour is to think ahead and find that perfect balance between the content, platform, and monetization. To make this happen, we need to have deliberations between industry, government, and international partners. This is exactly what we shall set out to do over the next few days. The foreign direct investment inflows in the information and broadcasting sector in the period April 2000 to March 2016 stood at almost $5 billion as per the data released by DIPP. Some of the forward-thinking global deals have been struck in the sector, which give us hope for the future. Dance2 Aegis Network Limited, the UK-based media and digital marketing communication company, has acquired Perfect Relation Group. Kedzenia planned to expand its footprint in southern India by investing 100 crore rupees. Vice Media LLC, the US-based digital media and broadcasting company, has entered into joint venture agreement with Times Group to open a new bureau and production hub in Mumbai and launch digital, television, mobile, and branded content in India. Cinepolis, the Mexico-based multiplex chain, plans to add more screens by investing around in India. The global video streaming giant Netflix has entered India as high-speed internet connectivity is becoming rapidly available to us. Nearly 1/5 of the India's 1.3 billion population is now online. The most academic awardee Jungle Book spectacular graphics were created by a Technicolor in India. Reliance Entertainment and DreamWorks, along with the participants of media and the media and entertainment, one has formed a cutting-edge film, television, and digital content company called Amblin Partners. Scoop Whoop, an Indian digital media and content startup, is expanding its video production unit called Scoop Whoop Talkies, another evidence of current trend in consumption. Is the government in the know of full potential of these truly exciting sectors? M&A is the window of our digital future. And the sooner this is established by our policymakers and stakeholders, the Indian M&A promises the country to be the world what is the real challenge and real opportunity this industry provides. Our minister, Mr. Venkaiah Naidu, has outlined the ministry's plan on introducing a national communication policy. He has stated that the government has allocated 100 crore rupees to revive the community radio stations across the country. This is indeed heartening. We need more of that to happen. The Ministry of Information and Broadcasting is working towards promoting ease of doing business, which will ensure less regulation and facilitate India to become media and entertainment powerhouse. A National Center for Excellence in Media is underway, which will provide much needed industry training. As you are aware, that Union Budget 16-17 proposed a basic custom duty exemption on newsprint and also on the wood chips. What we need is streamlining the sector. We are looking forward to GST and a ratification of taxation regime, we need to be more open for the film certification system and a well-researched policy framework on digital media. I am sure I have barely just touched upon the tip of the M&E iceberg. I leave the rest of the exhaustive discussion, brainstorming, and immense assembling of knowledge and ideas to the experts who have come together here to make the memories of yet another memorable FICCI frames. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Patel, for pointing out some of the trends that are already happening and listing us some of the activities that government has been supporting, which actually leads this happen. But to now give us a theme address, may I call upon Uday Shankar ji. You're all aware he is the CEO of STAR, but more important for us, he is the one who actually drives the FICCI Media and Entertainment Committee. So thank you, Mr. Uday Shankar. Thank you for always supporting us to take it to this level. Thank you. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. Your Excellency, Mayor of Toronto, Mr. John Tory, Mr. Nadir Patel, Honorable Secretary, Information and Broadcasting, Mr. Ajay Mittal, Joint Secretary, Department of Commerce, Mr. Sudhanshu Pandey, Mr. Pankaj Patel, Rakeysh Om Prakash Mehra, friend Didar Singh ji, Ms. Jacqueline Fernandez, friends from the world of media and entertainment. Before I put in my two-bit in front of you, I think a loud round of applause is in order for the 18th year of FICCI Frames. And for the incredible team of Leena and her colleagues who made it possible year after year. In this country, we all know we often create great things, but for them to grow from strength to strength is not an easy one. And for that, the tribute must be paid to Leena and her team. Thank you, Leena. Keep up the good work, please. The theme, as Mr. Patel pointed out, is digital divide or a digital dividend. I'm sure we will all hear a lot from you in the next couple of days about it. But personally, I find predicting the future to be a tricky business, especially when it involves the adoption of new technology. Just a year ago, at this very venue, there was a lively discussion on digital adoption. Less than a year, we are past the tipping point in this country. The distance that India has traveled in adopting internet-based behavior is nothing short of remarkable. From buying goods and services to ordering in, we seem to have done it all forever in this country. India is now one of the largest markets for mobile applications, be it by volumes of downloads, consumption of video, or e-commerce, for which it seems to have already emerged as the next big frontier. On the other hand, the conversation last year was about how many more unicorn startups will we see in India. This year, it seems it is about how many lame horses will the sector will have digital giants like Netflix and Amazon Prime. The story of bottomless war chess may or may not be true, but it does give us a sense of the competition that they see from homegrown digital enterprises, not just the likes of Hotstar, but others including Voot, Ditto, and many more. If there is one thing we know for sure, it is that this year we will see a lot more lively activity on this front. The technology that some of us have introduced in this country is as good, if not better than the best in the world. Combined with the reset in cost and quality benchmarks led by the likes of Reliance Jio, this has driven the adoption by the Indian consumer at a breathtaking pace. But while we celebrate this rapid growth, for this group of creative business people, today I would like to point out a somewhat disturbing trend that I notice. Bear with me. A trend that in the long run is likely to undo a lot of gains that we have made in the last few decades. I'm concerned if the Indian creative mind is in a position to respond to the pace of technological change with an equally rapid evolution in its creativity. Conservative. Even a word like, forgive me for using it, Sali, has to be silenced in a film. The city names must be absolutely correct and contemporary. And of course, do not go anywhere near discussions of women's issues. let alone female, 77 movies. This number was 47 in the previous year and only 23 in the year before. But can we lay all the blame on the censor board itself? In my view, the board generally reflects the collective and the dominant consensus of our society. And there are increasingly more bodies, mostly self-appointed, self-styled, who have taken upon themselves the task of censoring media content and maybe entire creativity. The refrain seems to be, I don't like the legend or the myth on which your story is based, so I will burn down your sets. I don't like a character, so I will not let you release your film. If you say you're going to do a show of busting fake godmen, I will take preemptive action. And what is becoming alarming now is that sometimes even the forums that you would seek redressal at are more inclined to bless the street side censorship than speak for the freedom of expression. Take, for instance, the example of our own movie, Jolly LLB 2. A few days before the release of the film, we were asked to screen it to a group of lawyers and medical professionals who were to decide whether the scenes were appropriate or whether they insulted any profession or institution. This was despite the fact that the movie had been certified for universal release by the censor board. And this is just one example. Let me give you a very recent example, in fact, from yesterday. A case of habeas corpus came up in one of the courts in India yesterday, where the father of a non-adult girl who had eloped with her lover went to court seeking direction from the court to get the authorities to produce the girl. The girl was produced in the court, and she said that she eloped with her lover because this was on the basis of an idea that she got from watching a Tamil film. Guess what happens? The entire regional censor board has been asked to present themselves before the court. Because the moot point is not to examine the claim of the woman, but the moot point is to see why did the censor board give an approval to that film, which encourages young girls to elope and fall in love. Thank God, no one has yet gone and blamed the Duryodhans and Ravans of the world on the film industry. There is yet, as Mr. Singh just pointed out, who knows? We might be responsible for the Mahabharat war. There is a long list of instances where the creative community has been bullied into changing its output to suit the needs of someone or the other in India. It seems that there are always people lurking in the shadows. Their sole job is to stretch and explore every piece of content that could be potentially offensive to someone. The openness of the internet was supposed to lead to greater plurality of opinions. Instead, it has created a violent polarity, a forced extremism on every matter that has made gray the least acceptable color in all discourse. As a society, we have raised the stakes of every argument to narrowly legal and brutally physical consequences. There seems to be no room left to have civil debates and no place for those who disagree. Punishment for disagreement seems to have become the norm. The institutions tasked with protecting expression and plurality seem to be at loggerheads with the objective itself. By creating elaborate formal ceremonies around it, are we taking the joy out of one of the most loved and celebrated lyrics in our country? That is our national anthem. What's frightening is that the court order has just become yet another weapon in the hands of any goon who's keen to stamp his authority in any theater in the country. We are rapidly descending into a mindset where the most critical objective of a work of art is to make sure that it offends nobody, no matter how many thematic or creative compromises it has to make. This is the most worrying part, friends, that creative minds have begun to self-censor their thoughts in anticipation and have started killing ideas before they germinate so as to avoid any potential trouble. And that is truly frightening. The spirit of creativity is to push the boundaries, and that seems to be deserting us. The advocates of vandalism claim that unique measures must be taken to protect our unique culture. Let me tell you, there is nothing unique about these methods. We seem to be following the script that other parts of the world, including Hollywood, had written almost 100 years ago. In the early part of the 20th century, the Hollywood film industry decided to regulate itself through self-regulation. It adopted a production code and insisted on its enforcement for almost 25 years. The code covered the use of profanities like hell and damn, any suggestive nudity, willful offense of any nation, race or creed, or any ridicule of the clergy, among other things. Doesn't it sound familiar? The similarity with our own moral code is striking, to say the least. Interestingly, television that was just arriving in American homes then emerged as the challenger to this regime. Along with European cinema that came into the US, television buried this regressive moral code. The question today is, will digital play the same role for our generation and our country? The role of a progressive challenger, the role of providing a bigger canvas and creating a space for dissenting point of view. This new medium has the ability to truly democratize broadcasting and content creation. It offers the creative community the rare opportunity to rethink from the scratch their art and how it is communicated. Only when modern technology and contemporary creativity truly come together will we create a compelling and powerful media and entertainment offering that we can call the digital dividend. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Uday. In fact, I must share something with you. Just yesterday, Uday was telling me, he said, how do I come every year to FICCI Frames and say something different? Well, obviously you can. It's quite remarkable. He's raised a very, very important issue, and I'm glad that you took it into the whole digital divide and digital dividend context of what this year's frame is, because that really is what determines it. It can be a divide and a dividend at the same time. And it's up to the industry, and this is where business and the industry comes in. We are the ones that have to stand with this and make sure that it is a dividend, and really the 2,000 plus crore $1 billion worth of industry that we have to protect it and make sure that it does well and carries on. This particular year we have also, I guess it's very symbolic and links with what you were just talking about taking a stand, and a sort of a stand not just in domestic markets but at a global level. And we are really proud to have Canada as our partner country that year, because Canada is one country that has always stood up for this. Thank you very much. And to introduce our guest, may I request the Honorable Excellency High Commissioner of Canada to come up on stage and introduce our guest. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Singh and President Patel and Chairman. That was a really, really great themed address, one that resonates with many of us here this evening, and distinguished guests on the dais. Let me just begin by, first of all, extending extremely warm greetings on behalf of the Government of Canada here at FICCI Frames 2017. It truly is a privilege to be the partner country for this exceptional event, and it's something that we've been looking forward to for some time. In fact, it's a little bit of vision turning into reality. One of the first visits I had when I became High Commissioner just under 2 years ago was from the FICCI Frames delegation in my offices in Delhi, and we talked about how great it would be for Canada to be a partner country, and to see that turn into reality is truly, truly special. So thank you so much for making this come together. We certainly we see a lot of reason and a lot of value in having Canada as a partner country. We see a lot of relevance in the industry. But I don't think there's a better time than for Canada to play a leadership role around the world in various industries, and this being one of them, than today. And for us to be here as partner country, but also with a delegation of nearly 100 strong provides an opportunity for us to really take the themes, take the discussions that you'll have over the next couple of days, and really see how they can lead to tangible success that builds on the momentum that's already created. Canada has a long-standing history with FICCI and with FICCI Frames, and for this reason, we couldn't think of a better partner or a better organization to showcase some of Canada's messaging. And so when we think a little bit about why Canada would be a partner country for FICCI Frames, we ask ourselves, what is it that we want to do? What is it that we want to see happen? And part of that, of course, is industry-to-industry collaboration. It's to ensure that there's opportunities for Canadian companies, Canadian professionals, many of whom are here today from Canada, to work with Indian industry professionals. But a very significant part of our intention or objective is to tell a story, is to really talk a little bit about what Canada is doing with respect to film and television, what Canada is doing with respect to Canada-India, what Canada is doing today in the context of the overall bilateral relationship. And I'm not so sure we're telling the story loudly and proudly enough. So let me just share with you a couple of bits. First of all, the Canada-India relationship is strong. I would argue is at its strongest point and is booming. It's getting much, much stronger by the day, thanks to the work that everyone here and so many others in Canada and India are doing. Over the last 2 years or so, two-way trade is up 30%. Investment is up both ways dramatically. From Canada to India, we've seen almost $15 billion of new investment into India across the spectrum of industries. The people-to-people linkages continue to grow at a rapid pace. When we see visitors to Canada, we saw a 40% increase year over year last year. Students from India to Canada went up 70%. This year, all of those metrics not only are continuing to exceed, but they're quite dramatically different. On those that are visiting and studying, we're almost doubled where we were this year, last year this time already. And we see more momentum on that relationship continuing. We see tourism up double digits. We see new flights nonstop between Canada and India, and this is where I make a plug. Not only Toronto, Delhi, Vancouver, Delhi, but Toronto, Mumbai will be starting in July by Air Canada nonstop, which will help this industry as well. And there's a lot more happening on that relationship, and it's time for us to tell that story. For those that know Canada or have been to Canada, or are working with Canada, we want to support you. We want to see your success grow even stronger. But for those that haven't been to Canada, for those that don't know Canada, it's our job to really bring the Canada story to you in a much more ambitious and aggressive manner. And that's what an opportunity like FICCI Frames provides us. It allows us to showcase a little bit about what we're doing. So if you take this industry in particular, Canada is at the forefront around the world of its capacity, its ecosystem of talent in the film and television industry, whether it's production, whether it's engineering, the full range of services. The ecosystem is long-standing. It was developed partly as a significant linkage to Hollywood and continues to grow at a rapid pace. If you look at the industry in terms of film and television, last year alone, it was approximately $7 billion worth of economic output. About 150,000 jobs in Canada are related to this industry. If you look at foreign language services productions, went up 27% last year alone. And if I look at all these metrics, they continue to move in the right direction. We have a lot of linkages already with India in terms of an audiovisual co-production agreement, which President Patel talked about. We have the Toronto International Film Festival, which is world-leading and one of the most attended in the world and has strong links here in India as well. And those are just a few examples, and we'll hear a little bit more about those shortly and over the course of the next 3 days. But don't take it from me. Yes, it's my job as High Commissioner and as a diplomat to showcase the virtues of what Canada and India can do together. But more importantly, take it from the industry. Take it from those that are already based in India and that are doing things in Canada or with Canadian companies. Or take it, more importantly, from the nearly 100 strong delegates that we have from Canada that are going to be here over the next couple of days. Take it from the Canada Pavilion. Please visit that. Take it from the different seminars and sessions over the next couple of days where industry practitioners can talk about the wonderful opportunities for growth. And that leads me to my concluding and most important part of my remarks, and that's to talk a little bit about our next speaker, who represents the City of Toronto, the largest city in Canada and one of the most important economic regions in all of North America. The City of Toronto is dynamic. It plays a very significant role in Canada-India relations. And if you haven't been to Toronto, you must visit Toronto. If you haven't been to Toronto recently, you have to get there, because what's happening under this mayor's leadership is quite groundbreaking. And the city is different. As each year goes by, you'll see something new and something dynamic and something different. And so it takes a very strong leader to really affect change and continue to promote the opportunities in Canada's largest city. It also takes a strong leader to officially lead our delegation to FICCI Frames 2017, and we're very, very delighted that he's doing that. And it takes a strong leader with vision to really showcase the opportunities for growth in the film and television industry, at which Toronto is at the heartland in terms of opportunities in Canada. And with that being said, he is a businessman, a lawyer, a former politician in the provincial legislature in Ontario, where he was not only a member of Legislative Assembly, but also the leader of the official opposition. And more importantly, what he's doing for the City of Toronto is very, very significant. And I said, I'm proud to say to everyone here, if it's good for Toronto, it's good for Canada. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming His Worship, Mayor of the City of Toronto, John Tory. Thank you very much.
Well, High Commissioner, distinguished gentlemen and Ms. Fernandez on the stage, and ladies and gentlemen, one and all. First of all, High Commissioner, thank you for those very kind remarks. When you're the mayor of the biggest city, and I'm sure it goes on here in India and all the other countries represented here, the biggest city in the country, it's hard to find people to say nice things about the city. Everybody always is a little bit jealous or otherwise inclined, but the High Commissioner, I thank him for his remarks, and I thank the Indian federal government, the state government dignitaries, and all of those associated with FICCI and FICCI Frames for welcoming us here as partners. I'm a proud Canadian, but I'm also the mayor of the country's biggest city, and I'm going to talk just a little bit about the relationship that I think is so important between this conference and the industry represented here and our city and the very important industry that we have. And it's not just about an industry. The High Commissioner mentioned the number of jobs that depend on the creative industries, television, film, digital productions, and that's important to us as well. But it's about an industry that captures and it helps to express the soul of a community. And certainly I can tell you that our industry in Canada, complete as it is with solid representation from people in the Indo-Canadian community, which is very large and very dynamic, and so it's such a blessing for us to have. More than 1 million Indo-Canadians living in Canada, and the majority of those living in the Greater Toronto Area. And one of the first things that I did as the mayor was to sign with Ashish Kulkarni and the Consul General of India in Canada, in Toronto, an agreement, that memorandum of understanding that was meant to forge new relationships between our creative communities, between the two countries, falling underneath the co-production agreement signed between our two countries. And it was meant to make sure that we had access to each other's sets of skills and each other's ideas and each other's innovations. And it has been followed up now by the fact that we are present here in such large numbers. We've mentioned this morning the delegation of 100 from Canada. I can tell you 40 of those are from the City of Toronto, and I'm pleased to tell you they include not just me as the mayor, but 2 members of our Toronto City Council, Councillor Michael Thompson, who's the head of economic development, and Councillor Nathan Chan, just recently elected to the City Council in Toronto. And what we want to do together is to find common ground in content creation. We want to seek best practices, support technology and innovation, and share this with each other, because we know that India is the largest producer of films in the world, And we want to make sure that we take that and take what we have in Toronto that I'm going to describe very briefly to you and put them together into something that is unsurpassed. More Collywood, we need more Mollywood, we need more Sandalwoods, and we want them all in what is the most diverse city in the world. You may have seen recently when the Mayor of London, and it was a wonderful thing for the world that he was elected, Mayor Khan, in the city of London by the people there, and he declared himself to be the mayor of the most diverse city in the world, and the BBC, as only they could, went off to check that out, and they came back and had said, no, he was sadly mistaken, that the most diverse city in the world was Toronto. And we're proud of that. Our city's been built. Our city has been built by people, including those from South Asia, who have come in such large numbers. 51% of the people who live in the city of Toronto were born outside of the country. This is something that is unprecedented, and it is something where our way of life is on display every day, where we embrace people because they're different. And we embrace people because they come from somewhere else and bring new ideas and new approaches and new beliefs with them to our city. And frankly, we want to have it all. We want to have that, and we want to have that combined with more activity on the part of this industry in our great city. And I can tell you that we bring to the party, as it were, a great, experienced, energized talent pool of people that are familiar with television production, digital production, visual effects, every aspect of the industry that are represented here. We bring partnerships, including our unions, for example, who are represented here with us on this mission, part of our delegation as evidence of how we work together as partners. Now, some would say that all that means it's not about the money. I've learned it's always about the money in some respects. I came from the media and entertainment business, and I know that it is about making money, among other things. And I just want you to know that to the extent as well that we have very generous financial incentives provided by the Ontario and federal governments, making us one of the most competitive production jurisdictions in the entire world, what we want to do is we want to work with you to plan ahead so you can take advantage of those financial incentives that are available, because they can't just be received at the drop of a hat, but they can, with a little bit of careful planning, be made available to you to make it even more attractive for you to come and do business with us in Toronto. And we offer secure financial institutions, government supports, ease of navigating, and we've seen everything from a television series of all kinds, digital productions, gaming products, and the feature films, of course, produced very successfully in Toronto. So I look here today, and we're here to say that we want to have a partnership between Toronto and India. It's a partnership of enterprise and creativity and talent and experience, and yes, money, so that we can produce content of all kinds, but in particular produce Indian content of all the kinds that I made reference to, Indian content for the world, because you want to find more and more ways to showcase unparalleled commitment as well to customer service. So when you come to Toronto, you'll have not only all of the talent and all of the financial incentives, but you will have us in your corner saying we are going to make it easy for you to produce whatever it is you've come to produce in terms of film and other creative industries. So I am looking forward to a new slate of projects that will come and be with us as partners in the City of Toronto, opening a new chapter in the great history of this industry, which has such a fantastic global reputation, but also a great new chapter in our history of an industry that is growing in importance, billions of dollars taking place of production in the City of Toronto, and we're looking forward to having all kinds of screen-based and other digital entertainment working with you in partnership. I hope, as High Commissioner Patel said, if you haven't been to Toronto, you will come and visit. If you come and visit, please come and see me and the other councillors. We will make sure that you're shown a good time, and we will make sure that you understand what a great place it is to produce creative content and how much we're looking forward to working with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Tory, and thank us today. And I'm sure that all of you will do business and actual collaboration with us as this happens. Now, as part of our activity, and you heard this mentioned a little earlier also, we always do a report with KPMG that's really the benchmark for the industry. So may I request the dignitaries to now kindly release the report, and may I also request KPMG representative here to join us on the dais while this is done. The report, please. Thank you very much. And we have a wonderful Jacqueline who has to now get on to the next inauguration that you're doing. You're welcome to leave, madam. Well, we carry on. May I now request Sudhanshu ji to kindly give us a perspective from the Ministry of Commerce. We are honored to have him with us. And may I just announce that next year he's going to really be supporting us for even expanding FICCI frames to the next level. He'll tell you about it. Please, sir.
Respected Secretary, Ministry of Information Broadcasting, Excellencies on the dais, President of FICCI and all other dignitaries on the dais. I think I would be very brief and focusing on what is my job, which is what is the commercial and economic dimension of the films and where do we stand. And also a little bit about what is the global regime today around this sector. That is what is extremely important for people to understand. The World Trade Organization, how does it happen? It happens on non-binding basis through commercial and revenue sharing model. Now what India has been pushing very aggressively, that when the world looks at Indian market for a variety of things, then the Indian industry should also get access to their market when it comes to audiovisual services, where we have the proven track record, we have created tremendous soft power around the world, we have a history and culture, and in terms of the global share, we are quite small. Our total film industry's global revenues are less than about 7% of our total revenues. Now this must change, because for any industry, the domestic dimension is important. But in today's integrated world, if the industry were to treat the entire global community as one market, then your share in that market has to be big in order to bring in the latest technology, funding, to plow back into the industry so that you can take it to the next level. We are today a little over a 2 billion of about say 38 billion film revenue, and by 2020 expected about 50 billion, we will be just about 3.7 billion. But when it comes to number of films, then we are the leaders. So where is the mismatch? There are a number of factors where I won't go. But the very minimum point, there was a reference given by Mr. Uday Shankar about the e-commerce. Now it's my job actually to point out that where do we stand in e-commerce? Because film industry is also a part of that emerging e-commerce market. In 2016, the e-commerce market globally is estimated to be about 1.1 trillion US dollars. The China is at number 1 with 376 billion US dollars. United States of America is at number 2, 322 billion US dollars. So this makes up about $700 billion already of the 1.1 trillion market. The Indian e-commerce market is at number 8 at 16 billion US dollars. The point I am trying to make is there's a long journey to be made, and we have to start this journey somewhere. We have shown our standing in the domestic market. We have also created a footprint globally, and we have to build now on that footprint to generate revenues. Just 3 years ago, when we participated in the Chinese International Festival on Services, they called CIFTIS. They started a special event which focuses around the service sector industry. And at that time, they had just about 14,000 digital screens in China. Today, there are over 40,000 digital screens in just about 3 years' time. We are way behind with just about 2,000 digital screens. Now, the point I am trying to make is that your global standing would enhance only when domestically you become strong. And how do you domestically become strong? Because today it is not merely the content which is going to drive the growth of the film industry, but it is basically the technology and the medium, which is the digital medium, which is going to be at the forefront in driving the growth of this industry. So what do we do to at least add 20,000 screens, digital screens in India, to create that mass which then becomes globally competitive in creating films for different markets, for different economies, different geographies, different languages. Just last month, we were having a conference with our ambassadors in Russian region and the CIS region. And all of them, they said that till couple of years ago, Indian films were extremely popular in the entire region. But now, since neither the subtitling is happening nor dubbing is happening for a variety of reasons, there could be problem of the distribution, there could be problem of the revenue sharing. They said virtually the market has been eliminated. Then we discussed this with the Ministry of External Affairs and we talked to a couple of people, producers. We said the ministry would be very happy actually to again work with the film industry on the subtitling and dubbing, provided the producers and distributors, they come forward, because in the area where the film industry had a very dominant presence, from there, now domestically we have grown, but we have left many regions of the world and we have come out of that. The piracy is also one of the factors which has actually led to a degrowth of the film industry in several reasons, because a lot of website hosted, especially in the foreign countries, they offer these films. And in fact, we took this with China very strongly, because we found that on the same day of release, a number of Indian films, they are available on Chinese website, and they are viewed and watched quite extensively. Whereas formally the release of the film and the distribution of films is not happening. So I think this is perhaps could become one of the priorities, that how do we domestically add digital screens in India, and how do we negotiate with different countries. Say China's commitment, which is now the largest in terms of the digital screen globally, is for India just 20 films. Now, as per the WTO obligation, whereas there is no restriction if voluntarily they can take more films. Some of the Indian films got a huge, big release in that market also in last about 3-4 years. And we thought that it is the film industry, because any distributor there would be interested in revenue sharing model. And for that, there is no government restriction as such. Any number of films can be imported. The Korean films in Chinese market were literally non-existent. But today, after the Hollywood and the domestic films, Korea is the largest film industry in the Chinese market. And this has happened just in about last 10 years or so. The point, limited point I am trying to make from the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, that since we have already have a credibility and a strong global footprint as well as the domestic presence, how do we make this, convert this opportunity into global revenue opportunity from the rest of the world market? Now this is something which we have to ponder. We have a couple of sessions around this, and how do we reach there with the interministerial and the industry cooperation. I think that is one point which is important from our viewpoint. The second is, two important initiatives were launched by government. One, Make in India, where this sector features very prominently, and second, Digital India, where again this industry can contribute immensely. Now how do we combine Make in India and Digital India to take this sector to the next level? Now this is another opportunity for us. The government has created the framework, government has launched number of programs, the FIPB liberalization has also happened. Let me just give you an idea that no country in the world has liberalized as aggressively as India in last 2 years. Our liberalization is unprecedented, and this, when we talk to negotiators, currently the RCEP negotiations are going on, then we find that even some of the developed countries there have more restrictions than what India has today. So we are more open, and therefore we would request the global community to come and invest in this sector, because opportunity are immense. Third and last point, which again I think is extremely important. The service sector today in India actually generates surplus. On the merchandise side, if the India has to grow, because India's energy requirements are huge, and we have about last year export of about 262 billion US dollars, but on the goods side we are deficit, and this deficit in last about 10 years has ranged somewhere around 75 to 80 billion US dollars. Now how do we offset this deficit? Because if the currency's requirement is to be met, then somewhere the surplus has to be generated. But that surplus is coming from the service industry. Service industry exports about 156 billion US dollars every year, and imports are just about 76 billion US dollars, and we generate a surplus of over 75 billion US dollars every year. That nearly fully compensates for the merchandise deficits on the goods side. But the important point that I am trying to make, what is the contribution of the audiovisual services in that? Now, and the film industry in particular, of this 156 billion US dollars, contribution of the audiovisual services on export side is just about 140 million US dollars. So, which is very, very small. And there is an opportunity for us, therefore in a big way, to actually take it to a different level altogether. Ministry of INB, Secretary is here, he will be giving you those details, has taken a number of initiatives, and we as commerce industry try to work very closely with all service sector industry and the ministries. And the film shooting is one area where India offers immense opportunities to producers around the world, and we can be a fabulous destination. Already a number of state government along with the central government have started offering a lot of incentives, a lot of facilitation, which has started showing results. But as I said, it's a complete mindset change which is required in order to remove a number of barriers which even exist today, and for which all of us are working very, very consistently, and I am sure in coming years we should be able to break some of those barriers and take this industry to a completely different level. As Secretary General FICCI mentioned, we want this sector to contribute much more in terms of generation of global revenues. And therefore, next year we have offered FICCI that we will be supporting this event from the Ministry of Commerce and Industry also to bring the global producers, global filmmakers, distributors, so that we can create a special platform where the international business on all fronts, whether it is content or technology or distribution or production, could happen. So with these words, I would like to thank FICCI Frames organizers who have done tremendous work in creating this event. Incidentally, I participated in the first event, FICCI Frames. I participated in between, and today when FICCI Frames is 18 years and is going to start its journey towards globalization much more aggressively, fortunately I am here again. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the endorsement to FICCI Frames. And now for the main inaugural address, may I request Secretary of Information and Broadcasting, Shri Mittal is here with us. We're very proud to have him.
His Excellency Patel, Excellency Tori, Pankaj Patel ji, Uday Shankar ji, distinguished guests on the dais, doyens of the media and entertainment industry, representatives from the government of Maharashtra and the central government, friends from media, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank FICCI Frames, the organizers, all of them who gave me this opportunity to join here today and to learn from all of you present. I would especially like to thank Uday Shankar ji and Leena, who kept persuading me till yesterday to be able to come. And I must say, when the parliament is in session, it's usually difficult to come, but I think it was that pull factor, that word, and no lesser means, literally helped by Yashish Kulkarni. He's sitting here. You can't really resist somebody like Ashish. Thank you. It's been a pleasure being here. The criticality of India's media and entertainment sector can hardly be overstated, both in its contribution to the creation of incomes and jobs, and also in its role as one of the great pillars of strength of the world's largest democracy, which has a history and tradition going back to thousands of years. The industry contributes significantly to India's soft power at the global stage and is perhaps the strongest cultural ambassador of India to the world. Uday Shankar ji mentioned about the three aspects of media and entertainment industry: the content generation, distribution, and monetizing. It's a tribute to the creative talent of India. And all of you, quite a few of whom are present here, that content is, and content does not remain a very big issue anymore. Rakeysh ji is sitting here, and so are quite a few others. I wouldn't even know them all. Content is not an issue anymore. Steeped in our own tradition and in our history and culture and traditions and the great diversity of the country that India is. Our creative people are capable of creating, as they have proved, world-class content in abundant measure. And where we really need to move now is the distribution and finally monetizing. Because as His Excellency said, well, it's all about money at the end. It's all about money. The lesson, personally, for me, is that these are and these should be the focus areas. How do we provide a platform and how do we work with the industry to create and strengthen the platforms that are available so that our creative geniuses, and as I said, they are no less in numbers in this big country, how do we support them? And then, of course, monetizing. And I think here, my ministry, and Sudhanshu is here, the Commerce Ministry, we have a huge challenge before us. I assure all of you present that we will work with increased resolve to ensure that we start doing this as early as possible. The industry has grown at almost twice the rate of our GDP and is one of the few that touches and impacts almost the entire population of our country on a daily basis. Backed by rising consumer demand, improving incomes, having met the basic needs, the Indian population is surely now exhibiting its great appetite for your product. The sector is seeing many challenges and many changes with the advent of new technologies and the new platforms. Both traditional and new mediums, business models are flourishing side by side. Well, from my own experience, when TV came, and especially when the TV in India went beyond Doordarshan with the entry of large number of private players, many of us had written probably the obituary of the print medium. But no, the media and the media persons continue to surprise us. We have a situation where print media is growing along with the audiovisual media. When the digital media started getting in, we again tried to write another obituary, this time not only for print, also for television. No, again, we are in for a big surprise. All of them are growing because the...
Thank you, and some final words. Thank you very much. He is chair of our film forum. Please, let's welcome him.
Dear friends, good to see you year after year and in strong numbers. And this only goes to reassure all of us that we are on the right path with the FICCI movement. Once again, we have a load of subjects, ideas, challenges in front of us, and I'm sure next 3 days will be absolutely great fun, and a lot of thoughts will get exchanged, and we shall all act upon them. A lot has been said about the censor and censorship in this country today. I'm very happy that Mr. Murthy is in the room, and between him and me, we were part of the Bengal committee, and we gave it 5 months. And if to break the suspense, what we've recommended is we need to abolish censorship. In complete clarity, there are no ifs and buts. There cannot be a scissor anymore in this great country if we need to preserve the freedom of expression. So the recommendation is to introduce certification based on age, but no censorship whatsoever. A very sincere thank to all of you for having graced this occasion and supported FICCI Frames. Without you, it does not happen. I think the men on the podium are just a mere reflection of the collective consciousness of the room, and that's where the podium draws its strength from. Thank you very much for coming back again and again in such healthy numbers and energy. Whenever I walk into this room, what really gets to me is the energy. India right now is a land of dreams. We have the great Indian dream, a land of opportunities, and there's so much to be accomplished, and we're going to do that. But we really cannot do that with meaningful partnership. So, sir, thank you very much from coming over from a faraway land, but you're very close to our hearts. Thank you very much for each delegation member from Canada. 3 cheers for being here. I hope you have a great time. I hope you come back again and again. We have a saying called Athati Devo Bhava, which actually I was trying to understand the meaning. It means come back. My dear friend, my guest, do come back. So, yes, we need to make money. I totally agree. But I beg to differ at what cost. We need to create content. Yes, we will create content. We will be imaginative. We will preserve our tradition. We will look into the future. But I think where we are failing is we are failing the nation is to take the content to the people of the country. So unless we start a revolution and the beginning of people's theatres in this country, all that we create will have very little meaning. Today at the breakfast with you, I actually heard myself saying that piracy is good. And I said, oh, what have I said? Where did this come from? That there should be piracy. And why did I say that? I was a bit angry with myself, and then there was a moment of self-realization that at least with piracy, the people of this country are getting to see what they deserve any which way, because we haven't provided it to them. Sorry to use this reverse logic, but the point I'm trying to say is we need to build theaters and cultural centers for the people of this country, where I can take my mother, my sister, my wife, or they can take me, sorry, and at a reasonable cost, in a healthy and a clean environment, which FICCI was at the helm of the multiplex revolution. FICCI was at the helm of so many other things, and I'm extremely confident that FICCI will be at the helm of this new age of cinema exhibition in India, which, if I may term, will be the people's theatres, set all across the country, and the numbers, and we're going to beat China, not to worry. A lot of us quote China all the time. So that's not an issue. It's great to have good and healthy competition. At least there are milestones. So we're going to do that. So yes, and I hope all of us in this room actually believe that we're going to do that. And unless you believe, we're not going to do it. So we need to take the country along, and not just 0.3 or 3% of the 100 billion we keep talking about. I have to thank our committee chairman, Mr. Uday Shankar, not for just supporting us, but for leading us from the front, for showing us the way, for his terrific ideas and bold thinking. He has not only been an architect of one of the most successful media M&E organizations of this country, but what he's also done for all of us is that he's been a thought leader. So, sir, please keep leading us. It's very important. Thank you, Mr. John Howard Torrey. Thank you once again. Thank you, Mr. Patel. And sir, now that you're here from Delhi and we brought you down with great persuasion, and since I believe finally we managed to convince you yesterday, we won't let you off so easily. Let me promise you that. And what I may suggest very humbly is, if we can, within the whole thing, create like an action committee of 3-4 people who meet every fortnight, because it's a long road. It cannot be just, we cannot fix meetings and then have meetings to have meetings. We have to define agendas. We have to approach it in a structured manner. And then maybe every quarter we review what had happened every fortnight, and we can provide representation from each stakeholder from our industry. And under your guidance and your leadership, we really look forward to, I won't call them issues. Somebody told me, so what are the issues in front of you? I said, we have no issues whatsoever. We have opportunities. I look at abolishing censorship as an opportunity. I don't look at it as an issue. We have to do it, and this generation will have to. So let's give it the next 3 years, and fortnight after fortnight, and let's see where we get. So on that note, once again, I'd like to thank everybody, people who come from far away land, parts of this country. Leena ma'am, you're the pillar. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That takes us to the close of the inaugural. Sorry for being delayed on the rest of the sessions, but we'll start right away. Leena, would you like to start the next session?
Today, after making the content, after doing everything, you don't know because two movies, similar in nature, one gets through and one doesn't get through. And I think what Soy is saying is perfect.
Kapil, if I can bring you in here to pick up on a point that Siddharth had mentioned earlier about the real screen paucity in India for films. So it's one, we know the numbers that we know we really have low screens per million. How do you expand this? I mean, how do you solve this issue?
I think before that, I'll very, very briefly touch upon how do you monetize the filmed content. So the first window of monetization of the filmed content is the theaters, is the screens. Then only it goes to the satellite channel or the other mediums. So when we go back 10 years, 12 years, all screens were analog and the release of films was restricted by the number of prints which any producer or the distributor could make, which was a very heavy investment. And so the first phase to exploit that, the digitization started. And I'm not giving any idea to the government of India, but fortunately digitization was not regulated. So the private industry came in, they invested heavily in the digitization. And by 2000, from 2005 to 2013, the 100% of the country was digitized. In terms of the theatrical entertainment. Through that digitization, the same 9,000 screens in 2005 and 2016, by 2008 the 100 crore rupee club was created, then by 2009 200 crore club came and by 2016 300 crore and the last movie did almost 400 crores, 387 crores, Dangal. It was because of the digitization. But this is only from those 9,000 screens. As Siddharth mentioned, we have 7 or 8 screens per million of population. China has 30. China has added 23,000 screens in last 3 years. 23,000 screens. Last year they added 9,000 screens. Equivalent to India, they added the screens. So the moot point here is that, as a country, we need at least 20,000 more screens. Now, capital is available, willingness is there, facilitation can be done. It is restricted only and only because of the regulation. Because there are 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 approvals required. There have been instances where the multiplex is invested heavily in a multiplex. It took 2 years to get the approval, 3 years to get the approvals. It was very politically driven or locally driven. So all the investment, it was going waste and there was a fear. So the growth of the screens is not happening. Today the screens are growing only at the rate of 2% per annum. We are adding 150 to 200 screens, that also in the multiplex sector. So the issue is that the moment we move from regulation to facilitation, immediately the growth will start. And growth is not going to come just from multiplexes. The growth has to happen all over the country. There are entrepreneurs all over the country who are willing to invest, who have land available, who have money available. Because the multiplex sector is very expensive. You have to bring cheap entertainment to the people all over India. So we need to add 20,000 more screens and that is possible only if there is facilitation. So nobody is looking for any subsidy from the government, but the moment we move from regulation to the facilitation, that growth, if China can add 23,000 screens, I'm sure we can add 20,000 screens in the next 5 years. Why not? So that is the main issue, and that is to fill that gap, which is in the villages, in the small villages. Now there are initiatives which are taken by various people by taking the cinema on wheels and showing it free of cost to the people. So so there are 1,500 cities and towns where these screens exist. There are some villages which are getting covered, but the huge gap, the 20,000 more screens, and I think that is what is the need of the hour.
I was really struck by the statistics that really struck me to me in the film industry this year is that Dangal was seen by less than 4% of India's population on screens. And you can correct me if I'm wrong. On that note, the Secretary of the INB Ministry, Mr. Ajay Mittal, is here. So if I can please request you to come on stage and join this discussion. couldn't let you get away without answering a couple of questions. So if Bharat, I'll come to you after I ask him a couple of questions on this. In your absence, one of the issues that we discussed was, and two things I wanted to put to you, sir. One is the question that Anuradha was discussing about when are we going to see the prospect of private news on radio channels and not just AIR news. And the second is, and this is a question to you as a parent ministry for this industry, this tussle with, there is a sense that with regulators seen to be affecting copyright principles in other ways, and there are court cases going on about that. What is your position as a parent ministry on that? If these two questions, if you could answer, sir.
Okay. First thing first, on the news thing, it's not that the news is not permitted as of now. News is permitted on all private radio and community radio. The only thing is, as of now, the news is to be sourced from the All India Radio. So that's one. Now the demand perhaps is that we should be tried to source our own news, and we should be allowed to edit the news before we broadcast. We are considering this. In fact, on this subject, there's a case already pending before the Supreme Court of India, and where the ministry is a party, and we are trying to deal with that case. So as of now, the local enforcement authorities on all complaints related to IPR issues.
So one more question on the issues around censorship, in particular on the threats of violence to filmmakers, recent incidents of sets being set on fire and so on and so forth. You responded to that question in the morning, so when it was raised in the opening session, you responded to that by alluding to the law of the land, saying that there are self-appointed guardians of morality, but there is the law of the land, and you
instantaneously by saying something. I mean, this is not just theory. The last political campaign, the major role of the news media was to amplify news from one individual. So everyone is a content company. I think that's the first thing. That leads into a second observation, which is platforms which take advantage of connectedness across consumers typically enjoy these winner-take-all dynamics or exponential growth rates, which will always outpace traditional growth in content industries. And the third is this blurring of industry boundaries, which I think many people have referred to, where what we call content and distribution and platforms or hardware and software, I mean, it's essentially now one game. We're basically all playing in the same space. I mean, what struck me over the last 10 days, I was just reading news feeds, is the extent to which Twitter, Apple...
Mittal Saab, I hope it's not unfair to you and to your colleagues in all the government departments. It's just a comment which FICCI and all of us sitting here should address. Fringe elements is always spoken about. They will continue. Jallikattu was the largest fringe element in Tamil Nadu. 70% of the people who went for the protest have never seen a Jallikattu in their life in Tamil Nadu. So now Maharashtra is reworking the bullock cart. Now you'll ask me, what's the relevance to my question? If this happens in the media and the entertainment field, I think we are asking for a larger political resolution to what can happen in the next 5 to 10 years. That's just my thing. I want to leave my thoughts with you, because majoritarianism of the Jallikattu got the central government to respond within a couple of days.
Right. We just have time for one more question. Yes, over there.
Yeah,
short questions, so we have to wrap up. We are running behind time.
Question. Okay, Siddharth, I would like to know, because you mentioned about creative people have started self-censoring themselves. Now tell me, you are part of Disney, and what happens when Disney, is working on a film project? Are you not, Disney also doesn't go through a process of self-censoring in order to ensure that it gets certain kind of rating, from the rating agencies? Is it not the fact that you also modify your content in order to get it passed from certain
Question
rating
is about
agencies, whether in UK
self-censorship,
or in US? This is a question.
Got it. Yeah, so I got the question. I'm actually not at Disney anymore, so I've turned independent producer, but I will answer your question. You are absolutely right when you say that a company like Disney would do a certain amount of self-censorship because the Disney brand stands for certain values that they would like to depict in their movies. Versus another studio which is sort of content agnostic, which doesn't only make family-friendly movies, but would make movies that maybe cater to a youth audience where they want to be slightly edgier, etc. I'm very heartened that the Secretary actually has clarified that we as an industry should not be looking at self-censorship, and that's something we would not like to be doing. But I think we're all responding to the current environment that exists, where unfortunately there are certain fringe elements, and as the Secretary rightly put it, you're not going to be able to apprehend in advance what they might or might not do and how their reaction might be. What I think as an industry we are looking for is when these events do occur, a very strong statement from the central as well as the state government wherever this has occurred, very strongly condemning this act, because if someone is, for example, slapped on the set of his film or a set is destroyed, what I think we would like is the signals to be sent out that this is completely unacceptable, though obviously we know it is, but it bears repeating because if that doesn't happen in a very, in a very timely manner, then you run the risk of emboldening these fringe elements by them believing that the content is being tacitly condoned. So I think it is very important for a very strong statement to go out from whoever the authority is at that point of time, that this will not be accepted and strict action will be taken.
We are many of us on stage. It's my privilege to be the moderator of this session, which means that I get to ask questions. I see many old friends here. We still have Vani Tripathi missing. I wish you were Vani. So, as I was saying that I'm privileged to be the moderator of this session, and personally I hate those moderators who speak themselves a lot and never give a chance to actually get to hear the panelists. It's my game today to try not to be one of them. Let's see if I succeed. And lots of many prolific people here, and I'm going to start the conversation very randomly. We'll try to make sense. A small introduction about myself for those who might know a little bit about me. I'll give you the reason why I'm entitled to be over here. It is that the first thing I ever directed on television was a show called Purukshetra, which was a chat show about women. Yes, ma'am, you were there. It was a chat show about men called Purukshetra with a female moderator. So history repeats itself in a different way, like Kabir Das ki ulti Vani. And I am here.
Your female anchor is a member of parliament.
My female anchor is a member of parliament. And if it had not been for Rajit Andhare over here, I would have been the only privileged male gentleman here. So, just working in Purukshetra, as it happens, provided me a lot of insight and experience about women in this country, how things were changing, how interesting things were. And we, in this short discussion, are not going to perhaps come up with anything prolific, but we will mess around till you guys get a glimpse of the lives that we live, that each one of us lives, and in an experiential way, we leave something with you which is of interest. So I'm going to start with Ajit here. Are you getting this mic? Hello, hello. Hello. I'm going to start with you, Ajit. Would you like to say what you do?
So I guess, first of all, again, I feel privileged to be here on this panel.
Is the mic working? So sorry, Ajit.
Yeah, the mic is working, I think.
All right.
Yeah. So save the moderator, I am the only one of the male species here. What do I do is I make films at Viacom 18 Motion Pictures. I think what we are talking about is breaking the glass ceiling and the misogyny and all of that. And happy to say that I think for us as a studio, the journey has been one where we possibly discovered this truth, very early, and a whole lot of films that we did. The heroism, did not come from the hero, which is what has happened for almost 50, 60 years in the industry. But the heroism actually came from the woman, and so we realized that, stories can source heroism.
No, Ajit, let me try to add some personal touch and some controversy into the thing.
Oh my God.
Do you like women?
Of course I do.
Yeah? You feel happy? Would you like me to take a snap and send to you?
Absolutely.
But when you work with them, do you feel that in the kind of setup that you work in a media corporate kind of a setup, all white collar, but do you feel any difference in the two? Would you be careful of, or would you be thinking differently in hiring a woman, etc., over a man, etc.?
See, again, this would be very conditioned from the background that I come from, and I've largely experienced two sectors when you talk corporate, one being FMCG and the other being media. Certainly in the corporate, I would say that's a thought which has possibly never crossed my mind, or the professional setup that I've been part of. Yes, of course, because of the society that we come from and the natural skew of the society, especially in the FMCG, the ratio of women was of course much lower as compared to media and entertainment. In fact, I would say if there is one industry which embraces women wholeheartedly in the corporate sector, it is actually M&E,
That's why we are in the industry which embraces women, right?
Absolutely. So I would say certainly not at all. I think one aspect where I do experience that is, let's say we are trying to sell a film with a female lead versus we are trying to sell a film with a male lead to a distributor. Now the distributor represents, let's say, a heartland person somewhere sitting in UP. I think the difficulty that I will face to sell a female lead film, despite having a roster of success on, female-led films, is going to be significantly high. I don't think I can sell a film even today. But if I have a male lead film to sell, I can sell it sitting in Bombay pretty easily. So I think that's the other end where we've really seen the contrast very, very starkly. And even if you've seen so much of success, whether it's, Neerja, Tanu Weds Manu, or, even Dangal, I think that whole bias is far too deep-rooted, for it to change easily, which is really the old narrative. But I think new narrative is that it is changing. People are realizing that there is an economics that works even with the women lead, and that bias is clearly sort of chipping away. But it's just starting to chip away. It's a really long way to go.
I'd like to welcome Geraldine into the conversation now. Since we were talking about things changing, we get the impression, being in this era, that things with women are changing a lot in the country. You are a historian, and you've written a lot about women in India. Do you think that we are gravitating towards greater rate of change as far as women, just the dignity of women is concerned?
Thank you. For historians, these are always difficult questions. Women are, is it good or it's too close? All right, thank you. I think there's definitely huge change, significant change. And one of the most significant ones is women in education. So I study a lot of colonial history, so the beginning of education for women, and do work on women who, I was just looking at one who was born in 1866, who was forbidden to study and remembered how much she wanted to study. And the boys in the family had a tutor who came to the school. She sat on the outside and was forbidden to even have a book or a pen to write. And so she learned everything by rote and was told by her grandmothers and her mothers that women don't learn. If they do, their husbands will die. So education is one of the most significant changes, and women going into every field. The other change, of course, is women in work roles, women working outside the home. But the numbers in India are strange because they are so much lower than other countries, and the number of women in the workforce are decreasing. I think what I do see is that doesn't seem to change as much as I would like is a focus on women's essentialized roles. And we were talking a little bit about this before we even came out here, that the ideal, the good woman, is a wife and a mother and a wonderful sister and a caring daughter and all these things. And in that equation, it's very hard to figure out how a woman is also very good at her career, works very hard, long hours. How do you combine the two? And I think the women I deal with, young students in India, feel just overburdened by this role model that they are expected to live up to.
Let's talk to a woman like that, pardon me introducing you with this, Monica, but you have, I'm sure, experience about this in your life, in the work that you do. Can you share some insight on this?
Yeah, sure. You know, being a minority representation in this panel as a non-film person in this, I like to give a perspective from a corporate, from the media and entertainment industry, from a corporate point of view. And being the topic of discussion of breaking the glass ceiling, I think I'm a live example of have broken that glass ceiling. Having said that, and I tend to disagree with Ajit in a way that media and entertainment industry is a good representation of embracing women. I think it's in a way correct when you look at a certain mid-level representation when it happens. So you find a lot of women in the corporate, in the media and entertainment space, especially with, whether it's television, broadcasting, advertising and marketing. But very few, or probably none at all, at the heads of those businesses. So whether it's managing the businesses or being on boards, there's a very limited representation of women in this industry. So I don't believe that we have done enough. In fact, on the contrary to media and entertainment, the financial industry, the banking industry is a fabulous representation of equal, getting women to be leading those businesses. Almost 50% of the top banks in this country are women, which is not the statistics, unfortunately, in the media and entertainment space. But that's taking the optimism part of it, or seeing the glass half full and seeing that, okay, I have tried to break that ceiling in some way. You're absolutely right. There is a sense of, so you basically need to learn how to tap dance, and which is what I did. So you have to there are certain compromises you do, and I don't call them as compromises, I call them the choices I made. The choices I made as a mother, as a wife, or as a daughter-in-law, as a business executive, those are the choices I took in my career, and I have no regrets about it.
Do you think it would have been easier for a man in your place, generally? I mean,
in many situations, yes, no denying that. And having been a woman in certain situations, I know I paid the price for it. Especially when I was having my children, especially I think I know that I lost my career sort of growth opportunities because it was presumed that having delivered a baby, you're going to have a tough time to manage career and work, career and home. So it was a presumption which was taken, and I did pay the price for it. But I, like I said, I don't have regrets because those are the choices I make. There are times you have to make those choices, whether you want to, sometimes I said, okay, it's really important for me to be at my daughter's parent-teachers meeting because that's more important to me than a very important interview or a business meeting. So I took that choice. But there are many times I had to not be there for an annual day function of my daughter because I had to be at a very integral business decision making. So those are the choices one has to make. Well, I don't know whether has to or not, but I did, and I have no regrets about that.
Vani, bringing you in, since this is a very general part of the conversation about which is easier, being a man in this world and achieving success, or being a woman and doing the same, and the extra price that a woman has to pay. And you have experience in politics, so you have, I'm thinking, addressed and been with the largest number of people perhaps as far as this question is concerned, and I've also been in media and I've seen you from college. So in your experience, what do you think? Just a very general question.
Imtiaz, to begin with, the subject of the day being misogyny and glass ceiling, actually they are at cross purposes with each other in the country. And we have to remember that misogyny itself, personally speaking and even socially speaking, is very deep-rooted prejudice which actually continues from very, very long periods. Probably if you go back to the history and the traditional way of, whatever women insignified, in the country, misogyny today, the way we look at it, absolutely represents that.
So in this conversation, we refer to misogyny as not really the hatred towards women, but a bias against women,
Absolutely.
right? That the society might
Absolutely.
have.
So
which
when
might
you
not
look
be the
at,
dictionary explanation
yeah,
anyway.
So when you look at the social fabric of the country and when you look at the diversity of the country, what tends to happen is that we need to, when we look at women and we talk about, prejudices against them, we broad stroke them in so many ways. We generalize them, we make it into a kind of a monolith. It is not a monolith at all. The kind of diversity this country has, and with very much the matriarchal societies which are also celebrated in the country, we more often than not forget to speak about them too.
Sure.
They were also a part of the discourse when the nation was evolving, and this kind of social fabric that we see today was very much a part of it. But having said that, by far, whether it is politics or whether it is media, of course, women, to be represented fairly is a very tough call. But we've also made a mistake as women sometimes, Imtiaz. We've kept the men out and the discourse is incomplete without them. I also feel that it has to be a collaborative approach and a shared responsibility, because policy making lies with the men. We, as we speak about representation in Indian Parliament, we are at 11.5%, which in an Asian context looks like a very big broad stroke, but it isn't. So I think the way forward, or the way women are today, this glass ceiling is also about creating a collaborative approach, with the other gender. And until that intermix will not happen, till that discourse will not happen, the narrative will remain incomplete. And I know a lot of my women rights friends, who talk about women liberation, get upset with me when I say that. But the practicality, or the way you look at it logically, has to be that it has to be a shared collaboration, and if they are not understanding, you will have to make them understand.
There is a very interesting thing now, since we are talking about politics. As a kid, I used to wonder why in the United States of America and many progressive countries where women's rights are much more respected than in some others, we have not really had a prime minister or a president, the premier, as a woman, where in countries like Bangladesh and in India, which are supposed to be very backward as far as women's rights are concerned, we've had them. What would you say to that? What could be the reason?
Very simply, the answer is always say that these were dynasties which were ruling the countries. It was Sri Lanka, it was also Benazir Bhutto Pakistan, Shrima Bandar Naike, and of course Indira Gandhi herself. But having said that, I think, Imtiaz, we have very consciously worked at women representation. Sometimes these have been very silent movements. For example, the reservation that women got in the local self-governing bodies of the country in 1990s was a very big change.
Are you pro that?
Absolutely I am. Because remember, as in Sri Lanka, Nepal, Bangladesh and Pakistan, where women are nominated on posts of representation, in India they have to electorally fight them. And remember, gender no more remains an issue when it's a woman pitted against another woman. And the moment the gender is out, the issues become more complicated and more diverse. So they have been silent And remember, reservation, the bill which is also there in the parliament, which is not getting passed because of course, the patriarchy, and we are addicted to patriarchy in this country. But having said that, it's a socially leveraging position. And we have to remember this social leverage is very important for us as far as representation of women is concerned in the country.
So talking about personal leverage with you, Sona, we were just discussing that she performs in front of thousands and thousands of people. She is a prolific singer and a performing artist. So when you tour in the heartland, as we were talking, in the north, as a woman performer, do you do anything special to control your security situation?
Before I answer that, I must say this is the first time that I have been on a panel which, not surprisingly, is again a women's topic and women-centric, and so I get invited for it. And I have a grouse every time Times Now calls me. I say, you know, I have a brain that can opine on things beyond matters women, so I would like to be invited for those ones too. I must say this is the first time that I'm sitting on a panel where there are two men on stage. Otherwise, I have to literally think that it's a bunch of women talking about women, and the audience is also mostly women. So thank you to the organizers and the audience.
Case, right?
Because it always feels like we are here to discuss our period pains or something, and it's all between us, and the rest of the world doesn't have to engage because we are only 50% of the population. But just like the universal stories in film, in the big parda, is all about everybody being interested about man's journey and narrative. And when it comes to the women, only the women are interested. I feel, well, we should give a big clap to all of us for filling up this bubble with all of us, you know. Yeah, and to answer your question, I'm a performing artist, and I travel with a band. And for the larger part of this decade, I started where just to pitch the idea of a female performer with a band was a tough one for a lot of people to digest, because thanks to the Pakistani bands, or maybe that's not the word angle to bring up here, people had an idea of how, well, men can be with musicians on stage, women have to be with dancers for some reason, and in some way titillate the audience. I mean, that's that's likely to be a purpose. So you're either in that zone or you're in that Savitri, Saraswati, frump, singing very seriously and appealing to that, you know, that domesticated woman who is either that wife or, you know, or that good girl, a good woman. Things have changed though. I mean, I've seen it change in the last 7-8 years itself. And in the last 3-4 years, I find myself touring extensively with a band. And North India is especially very challenging and a very exciting space to be in. Because, what was the question you asked me though? Do I do anything?
Doesn't matter, you're doing well.
Do I?
Leverage,
yeah.
Security.
Yeah, in terms of security, I must say, I must say that I have a manager in the audience here who would vouch for the fact that we have an incredible detailed hospitality rider, which we learned to put together over the years, where we attempt to create a distance between what I am and what the rest of the people are who meet me in that show, because it has to be that quality for car, this amount. There is a certain belief that if this female performer, you know, breathes in some rarefied air, and therefore she shouldn't be touched.
People might think that that you're snooty.
Sorry?
Because you have specifications about how you'd like to be treated on the tour.
Yes, to this extent, every time I check into a hotel in North India, I must share this with you, is that आप अभी भी करो, दिल्ली में भी हो, Delhi is your capital, you call up for room service and they will answer you with a sir ji. And I will keep saying, आवाज़ इतनी भी भारी नहीं है, I'm a woman, and you know, I would try and explain that. And it's incredible that even a waiter coming in to serve you, and I'm not talking about Kanpur or some, you know, smaller place, I'm talking about even Delhi, where their natural instinct is that if it's a position of respect, if it's a person living probably alone in a hotel room or seems to have a team or some kind of a boss, some kind of an authority figure, it has to be Sarji. The vocabulary itself is not tuned in to understand your gender.
That's true.
So there's so many little interesting things which add up to show us that yes, things are changing, but I mean, we have a lot of people to go. The one thing I'd like to state up front is that it's not about being the pretty faces anymore or being just visible. I think it's very, very important that women occupy positions of leadership and decision making. And for that, when it comes to the media and entertainment, they actually take charge of creating content and not just being part of content, not being the puppet in the whole game. So that to me is the most critical thing straight on.
So, talking about pretty faces, Richa, what do you have to say to that? A pretty face, a beautiful woman, does she come in the way of her own development in other spheres?
Yes. Hello. Hi, everybody. I was waiting for a chance to speak at a panel like this, so I'm going to say 3 very revolutionary, radical ideas that I believe in, because this house has so many men. Okay? 1, I firmly believe that if women were not responsible for making children, we would be obsolete. 2, do you think the world is in a good shape right now? Do you think so? Does
Yes,
anybody think so?
I think
Yes,
it's getting
no?
better.
Okay, well, I'm talking about war and famine and food distribution.
It's better
The
than last
world-
century. It's getting better every decade.
Okay, can I finish?
I'm
The
optimistic.
leadership of the world primarily has been in the hands of men. Give us a chance. We bring life into the world. We know the value of life. We were not prone to war so easily. Give us a chance. And 3, women to get to the same stage as men in career or in any other field have to work twice as hard. And I think all women here would agree with me on that.
I don't agree about the asking for it.
Yeah.
I believe that real power has to be taken and not given.
Yes.
So then why, who are you asking?
I am not asking. I am saying it's happening. And we might as well brace for it. Because if we are going to live in the illusion that this country is going to become a superpower or that the wars will come to an end, and barring a few countries, more or less the laws are in favor of patriarchy, and it's so conditioned because feminism is not a biological thing. Just because I'm a woman, I'm not a feminist. Just because
That's
you're
true.
a man,
It's
you are
not
not
a-
patriarchal.
Imtiaz,
right?
have your good looks come in the way of your career?
I would like to say, first of all,
My good looks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I just say something?
Oh, it's the first time you heard that, didn't you?
Is your vision?
It's a question just keeps getting asked to women, you know. It's like,
No, but
are your
I
looks
want-
coming in the way of being taken seriously? I keep,
So
yes, for the longest time.
I want to say something that I'm not ashamed to admit. For the longest time, for most of the industry, I wasn't even good looking. I was only good looking for my mom and dad. Because I was little savli for a Punjabi, you know, not a model-esque kind of figure. So thank you for the compliment. And no.
No, I'm your fan. I think you're definitely one of the best actors we have.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
I go to watch your films, and ever since I saw you first as Dolly,
Yes.
I could never forget.
Can I say something here?
Yes.
There's just one
Yes.
thing.
Monica, yes.
No, I
please.
just wanted to add that, you know, I think it's really not about asking based on your gender. Anything, it needs to be gender agnostic in terms of whenever
That's true.
you
I
are
believe that.
looking for something, whether you are a particular role, that's a career opportunity, role opportunity. If the role demands it to be in terms of, in any form, it needs to be gender agnostic. I think what is happening by and large is that there is a perception, not a perception, but a reality in many cases about that it is assumed that being a woman, you will not be able to do those roles. And I'm again talking with reference to the corporate world. But let that, so it's not about women's right and saying that give us a chance and we can prove men wrong. It's not men versus women really, as much
Sure.
as being, is that particular role or an opportunity for the, I mean, look at the talent, not the gender.
That's
I
true.
have a request to make
Yes, ma'am.
of any corporate person here, while here on the stage or otherwise, is that it all starts so early. I mean, last year I got into this controversy one more controversy with the IIT Bombay issue, where I don't know if all of you were very busy, but I wrote this open letter finally after being invited for 3 years in a row to go and play their festival. Just to give you an idea, the specific request I have to make of brands and any corporate person sitting out here is, if you do really stand for the idea of equality and equal opportunity, when you are sponsoring even something as simple as a festival in a college campus, and you're not taking note about the fact that for 3 decades in a row, there are no female headliners, be it in music, be it in the literary section, be it in the theater section, be it in the stand-up comedy section. Year after year, you are propagating the myth that the male is supreme, and at best, I'm a decorative add-on, or I can only come a third best. You're propagating that system and that hierarchy right from the very start. So while I'm traveling so much and performing so much, it breaks my heart to tell you that after I wrote that open letter, I used to at least perform in the female colleges, because as I said, women for women is like understandable, because we are going to discuss some very womanly issues. But for a female headliner to go with a band and even perform in a university, and you know, these are big, big festivals, they are always backed by the big brands, but nobody bothers to check that year after year, you have 5 days of performances and it's always a male headliner. It's always a male headliner. And these are the little, I can only speak from my personal perspective. I'm sure the other professions have their own requests.
Well, my personal perspective is that when I was in Delhi University, I would love to go and see a female performing over any man. It is not even talent, it is love. But coming to Tanishta, we were talking about, yes, Vani.
One rejoinder to the last thread of thought on prettiness, I thought is just something that, you know, for example, in the film industry, it's very, you know, it's sort of normal to say, show me your pretty face. And, you know, being in the film industry as I was for 10 years and also, you know, having come from theatre, I used to always wonder that what is it that it is just
How
about
do you make the pretty face? Huh?
Well, I think...
Pretty face.
Well, I have done theatre with you. I think it wasn't just about a pretty face. But I'm just trying to underline a fact that there are some distinctions which have become very sort of solidified. They have become almost insignia of whatever is equated to being a woman or her womanhood. And being a pretty face just happens to be one of those realities which most women are faced with. And I think that is again that distinction which we need to make, whether it is the agender, as Monica said, there's a big movement on right now in the West saying we are agender, and men and women are coming out and saying we are agender. But this distinction of show me your pretty face, which is very normal, it's just, I think that needs to be understood also, you know, in some context.
Let's try to understand it from Tanishta, who's worked in different cultures in the media industry as an actor. And first tell us, what kinds of people have you worked with in terms of nationality and culture? And then if you can go ahead and tell us if there is any difference in this question of being gender agnostic in different cultures.
It's a very long discussion, but...
I know, some highlights,
yeah, I mean, I've worked,
controversial ones.
Yes, I have worked in Europe quite a bit. I've worked in Australia, I've worked in America and in India. I mean, like when you ask the question, you know, we have a lot of powerful women CEOs and politicians and, you know, in positions of power, we have a lot of Indian women. But when it comes to a generic society, we still face biases constantly. And I would completely agree with Vani there that because of a feudal background, we have two sections, very demarcated two sections where some people who come from a very privileged family, which comes from a caste system and, you know, the feudal order, they get all the exposure, so it doesn't matter, gender really doesn't matter there. But the patriarchy there helps you to reach a particular position. You have a powerful brother or a father who puts you in that position. And if you don't, then it's difficult and the struggles are large, though I think the narrative is changing. Whereas I think in the West, probably in the more developed countries as we speak, the equality when you just live in society at large, in a middle class society, it's more equal. But those like really high positions, it's tough. You know, we were promoting a film called Parched, which is about women and sexuality. and we had a screening in one of the most gender equal societies and countries of the world in Sweden, in Stockholm. And even in Stockholm, women came to us and said that we identified with these stories, which is about domestic violence, which is about subjugation of desire in women, about how a prostitute deals with age. It's the same narrative. So I think the narrative in that sense doesn't change. Like I was just speaking to Shona, like inside, I was in a panel in Telluride a few years back where we were discussing why Hollywood is so underrepresented as far as women are concerned. And though there are many powerful producers in Hollywood, there are very few directors who are women. And even the powerful producers are unable to bring forward those stories which women want to tell. So there's clearly like a control in terms of, you know, how the narrative would go. And I mean, as an artist and as a person who's a performing artist again, as an actor, what I would like to see, and I agree with Shona there, that we have to create our own stories. We have to say that, okay, if I'm not getting a role like this, then let me write for myself. Yeah. And let me change the narrative like that.
That's also unfair because you're not a writer. Yes. I mean, you might be, but many people are not.
No, but you rally around with women,
I'm not saying me as
or come around with like-minded people.
That's not the way to become gender agnostic, I would think.
But we have to start somewhere.
But you have to start somewhere because the thing is that I also very strongly feel that our society at large, you know, the narrative for women will only change through pop culture. Because pop culture is a space where people grow up with those ideas and those images without really underlining or thinking about it.
Well, I agree to that.
And so while there's such
unless
excellent...
we change it through pop culture, and in our country film is such a huge pop culture, we will never see that change. It is not about teaching a guy or a girl that this is how you should behave. It's just telling them effortless stories where you just represent women differently. And
that's true.
And for that to be written, we as women or as men have to take a very active interest. Even at times when it fails at the box office, we still have to make that change and that be that responsible as a society to make that change in the narrative.
And I think that even as filmmakers, we have to be responsible to make it reach out even more if you have something to say, to make it even more interesting and entertaining.
Yes, and I think, you know, recently I always give the example of a film called Sairat, which actually made, like, you know, it was a huge success at the box office. It did not underline a feminist story. It was about but the gender reversals were excellent, and it just, you know, it just created characters which were not stereotyping gender. And, you know, the audiences fell in love with those characters. The boy was very much in touch with his feminine side. The woman
and vice versa.
Yeah, and vice versa. And, you know, the audiences fell in love with these characters. And it wasn't underlined as a feminist film. It was about actually caste politics and honor killing. But, you know, the gender reversals were so beautifully and effortlessly done. And I think in popular cinema, we have to constantly create it without underlining. And so that, you know, audiences just accept it without an effort. And that's how we change the narrative. That's how we change the way people look at women and men.
And now I'm going to ask you, Priyanka, if you can tell us about your personal experiences working in different cultures as an actor. But before that, I'd like to say that very soon we'll come to the audience to ask some questions. And is there somebody who can pass a mic around? Please prepare for that. And come into the center, you stand there so we can decide on who we can go to. Prepare while I ask you for your observations.
Imtiaz, I didn't know what it was going to be, this panel, and because I RSVP'd yesterday, so very innocently I wrote something down, which I think will stream the entire thing and my personal experience as an actor and as a human being and as a woman, and as well as gender, you know, without gender. So, so here goes. Dear all, I thank you from the bottom of my heart to have me here this evening amongst such distinguished people artists and technicians. I am here before you not as a woman, but as a human being striving for a better future in the field of entertainment, education, and the arts. I'm an actor telling stories, wanting to represent better versions of me through the stories I find, or the ones that find me. I request all of you present here to support this movement of better female representation in our films. Female writers, producers, directors, and actors are all out here in our country wanting better representation in our films, industry, and home country. I request that when people in power choose, they have the ability and the intellect to choose devoid of gender recognition, but on the basis of merit and diligence, on the basis of truth in the voice and dedication towards a better story told. Women in India have come a long way, but some stories are still unheard and some hands are still not held. We still have a long way to go. I still have a long way to go. There is so much to do. In some countries, I hear they talk about building a wall. Let's not make invisible walls around us. May we truly nourish potential devoid of gender. As an individual growing in this country, I grew angry for the way I was treated on many circumstances. Some of those stories were so raw that it will take me a little more than this life to heal. I'm grateful to the arts to provide opportunities along the way to express myself and find forgiveness. I'm still searching, living, and growing. I envision a better future for women in film, women in life, where there will be no barriers to break, but only personal human revolutions and breaking their own barriers of fear. It's 2017, for God's sake. I leave you guys with a quote by Dorothy L. Sayers. In fact, there is perhaps only one human being in 1,000 who is passionately interested in his job for the job's sake. The difference is that one person in 1,000 is a man. We say simply that he's passionately keen on his job. If she is a woman, we say she's a freak. You've got to love her for that. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we are getting ready for audience questions. How are we doing on time? Is somebody going to tell me? Because we can, 10 minutes. Okay. So we've got 10 minutes. We'll stretch it to a little bit more because I think that we are completely underutilizing the panel. Who's going to ask an interesting question? And a question, please. If you have an observation, save it for later. Just a question, point it out. Please say your name. Yes.
Sandeep from Afternoon here. Priyanka ma'am, what do you feel about the recent trend of woman-centric films and films made by lady directors and producers?
Priyanka is here.
I'm Priyanka.
Huh. I'm Richa, sir.
Who are you asking? Don't worry. You.
Yeah, may I hear the question again, please?
What do you think of the recent trend of woman-centric films and films made by female ladies and producers and directors?
First of all, why is it a trend? You know, this whole, the idea of trending, you know, makes me figure it out like
makes
a
it superficial.
hashtag. I mean, why is it a trend? I mean, it's a normal thing. It's a female director. I mean, she's a director. She's an actress. She's a producer. Female director, you know, this award goes to female director. It doesn't make sense to me. So this trend you talk about, I mean, this is why we're here. You know, we want to do better films. We want to do better roles, and as female artists, let's not...
Priyanka, I've got to ask you, Tanishta and Richa, this question. Referring to you as actress, what does that do? Do you like it, hate it, you don't mind it? What's going on with actor and actress?
No,
Like nobody will say Sona is a singress.
No,
but
yes.
is it songress?
There is a songress.
But I mean, I used to mind it because somebody said it's derived from actor. But I said, hey, maybe the actor is derived from the actress.
Could
so
be.
now I don't mind it. And I say whatever I feel like, irrespective of gender. It's irrelevant.
Is your, Tanishta, your attitude about that one like my attitude towards Bollywood and Hollywood?
What is your attitude towards Bollywood? I don't know that.
Well, I hate to say the word because I feel it's a kind of a cheap imitation of something, but then it's just easier to say it sometimes, so I'm confused.
Derived. I would prefer to call it like, you know, Indian cinema. And
No, we are not talking about that. We are talking about actor and actress.
Actor and actress. I don't care. It's a chicken and egg situation.
So you're
I don't
gender
know.
agnostic as far as that's
I don't
concerned.
know. Yeah, I don't know where it came from. Maybe the actress came first, so I don't really care.
I was talking to my dad about it. My mom is she teaches in the university. And when I said, you know, this actress, and he was like, you know, I used to teach in the university and they used to call me teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But Ajit, are you careful about that being a man? Because I'm sure that you meet a lot of
the
female
biggest
actors.
The biggest majority of the panel, you're asking exactly the right question to.
I'm being most careful here, being on this panel itself, you know.
Yeah,
So.
I'm still far away. I can run.
No, see, I think let's just try to make some sense of this larger discussion here. I think we've heard, you know, some points which point to the pain that has been associated with being a woman, the challenges and so on and so forth. I think that's a fact. There is no denying that a woman has to, you know, has to work that much harder and has to sort of cross greater hurdles. And I don't think there is any, you know, any debate there. And that's very simply because, you know, we are a 5,000-year-old society, which is, you know, come from the whole idea of Manusmriti and all of that, you know. So we are carrying a humongous baggage of being a very male-dominated society. That to me is the old story. What excites me is that this story is actually changing very rapidly, you know. And if you see what is happening around in society at large, is this ceiling that we are talking about is repeatedly getting broken, and getting broken in very traditional countries like even India, you know. I mean, look at sports, and whereas the most harvest of medals come from, it's come from women. And it's not come because anybody, you know, asked something or anything was given to them or there was a reservation, all of that. They have earned it completely. If you look at corporates, clearly the progressive, forward-looking corporates are making interventions to actually get more women on the board. But again, to me, these things are small and incremental. The most exciting thing is how cinema is changing, because, you know, if there is one power which can change societal attitudes at large, it's something like cinema. And if you see the kind of films that are winning people today, that gives me a lot of hope, and that gives me a lot of you know, sense of how these things will change maybe much faster than what we imagine them to be, you know. There is a A-list film, I won't be able to name it, and somebody would not believe this, but the lead actress in that A-list top-tier film has been paid much higher than the actor. This is something that...
In your company?
No, it's in the industry, and I'm going to qualify that. To me, that's the highlight.
That's awesome.
If this has happened, that's already awesome, right? And if the films are able to weave such stories which are making impact, I think the societal attitudes will get fashioned, will get changed, and that is really what gives me you know, a great hope, and that to me is really the exciting part of this discussion. So I think we should move it there and see as to how this change can be accelerated, and accelerated not perhaps by pushing it, but more organically by possibly being more agender, and by doing things you know, that are required to be done, rather than, you know, taking this up as a cause and doing it for the sake of it.
Geraldine, I'm sorry to cut you, Ajit, but just to bring you in at this point of time and ask, is there some bullet remark you can make? How do we push this forward in our country? What are we doing wrong, what we can very easily set right?
So it has interested your comment about media, and I think media is so extraordinarily important, whether we're talking about the United States or here. Yeah. So I think about whatever, some of the films and television programs. So television, soap, opera, serials really are not moving ahead. Progressive. So I heard this when I heard this comment about women-centric films, so I thought,
they are not moving ahead in terms of the subject matter. But very popular and very highly paid actors are female.
But perhaps in terms of advancing women's social roles, perhaps they're
in terms of the characters they're creating,
the characters.
But isn't it a paradox that you have what you call not a very liberated view at women in television serials, but the ones who are famous, the actors are female, and those are the ones.
But they're portrayed. The propaganda is these are consumed by women, made by women, and also produced by.
Is that a bad thing?
And it's very regressive. No, it's not a bad thing. But the regression, and that's why when I was trying
So these
to
women
speak
are
about-
very male
when I was-
chauvinistic.
Yeah, you know, that's why I was speaking about the shared collaboration.
women
That
also with the same information.
this bastion is very regressive right now. This space is very regressive right now. And the funny part is, in terms of content, films have taken a big. I mean, I can understand why that gentleman said the word trend, because the propaganda used to be that women protagonist cinema is commercially unviable. That has gotten broken, you know, in recent times.
That's
And
true.
that is the progression that you see, and yet television and content is getting increasingly regressive. And we should be very worried about it as you know, as society
Because
right
the
now.
penetration is so much higher. It's going into every home, and even women watching them is dangerous because it's creating a sort of stereotype in everybody's mind.
Yes, Richa.
It's a little more complicated than that. It's a little more complicated than just progressive attitudes at play. There is a huge English, Hindi or English and Tamil, Telugu, Gujarati divide. The serials that are made for the national viewing have a certain format. And then literally you see versions of them in any other regional language. You and I will not watch Nagin on TV. We'll watch Amazon Prime or we'll watch Netflix. But this is the divide between, say, my grandmother who watches these shows, my mother who will probably watch Zindagi channel, some nice, literally Pakistani or Turkish dramas now, and me. So I think it's more of a class and language thing. However, I completely agree. It is a very, very dangerous thing because like some 10 years ago in Gwalior or Indore, a kind of school propped up to educate women how to be ideal bahus, and then they had these posters of famous TV actresses, all of whom I know personally, who wear shorts and bikinis and take lovely holidays with their boyfriends, girlfriends, whatever. And it taught a woman that the woman could go there and learn how to be the ideal wife. And we've all grown up on this, or like all this Bhabhi tum khushiyon ka khazana, Pehli Kiran, and or ads. Ooh, ouch. Subah se sham tak 8 baje nashta, 10 baje something. 11 baje ye, 12
that a
baje
song?
bache.
Is that a song? Wow.
No, but
is
right
an
now,
ad
even in
for,
advertising,
It's an ad. Okay,
even for
okay.
Father's Day, right now in advertising, the current trend is women's liberation right now seems to be everybody's dharohar. Because in advertising, Father's Day maybe you have to show the fact that it's all very...
Yes.
Imtiaz, one question.
Yes, sir.
Richa and Tanishta specifically, you have been part of some path-breaking cinema in the past. Do you think today on this platform, there are still some stories, untold stories, which needs to be told, and you need to be part of it as such?
Sir, how we'll tell all stories in 40 minutes?
No, not 40 minutes. Maybe there are some strong subjects here you feel could make a difference when we are talking about women at large. See, we are talking about breaking the glass ceiling, but practically everyone is staying in
there are ample number of stories that need to be told, and there are those stories. I've recently finished a film which is a period piece, which is the life of the first practicing woman doctor of India. And when I did her biography, actually today, as Ajit is saying, you know, if I'm talking about positivity, when I look at her life, who was born in 1864 and she lived till 1955, and the kind of struggles that she went through to become the first practicing female doctor of India, to the life that I have, I think, yes, we have made progress.
I would love to see a Gauhar Jan. I don't know if anybody has heard of Gauhar Jan. We have, but well, she was the first recording artist of India. She was a superstar. तब तो billboards और वो TV नहीं होता था. But on the Matchbox के cover में उनका मुंह रहता था, and she was like a queen in her own day. But I just need to connect the dots here and tell you that at the turn of the century, you had a Gauhar Jan who was a female superstar. But yet she was not accorded, even till now, a female ustad. There is no equivalent of an ustad or a pandit when it comes to a female performing artist who has reached that level.
Well, that's
वो
true.
कोठे में रहती थी, and the men occupied the concert stages. So for me, Gauhar Jan and her ilk were the first empowered women of our country, because they were the first women who could earn a living and have money in their pocket that was their own and not a brother's or a father's or a husband's. They were the first ones to own property, not in their name. They were not even allowed to own property in their own name. So it was in a brother's name or in somebody else's name. But they were the first ones to pay property taxes. So the lineage of the artist, so to say, without the dignity accorded, or this Ustad and Pandit thing that I've been screaming about for a long time, I mean, in today's day and age, we still do not have an equivalent of an Ustad and Pandit. It's something to worry about. So the story of Agauhar Jan and her life, I would say, would make for a very interesting film.
So there you are, many
if you're
stories
making one
that
Imtiaz,
answers
I'll
your
sing
question.
for it, huh? I don't get
Sorry,
to
are you
sing
saying
much.
something? Have I interrupted?
Yeah, I said if you make one like that, I'd sing for it. I have a good voice.
Yeah?
Richa,
Okay.
Richa had something to say.
Let's talk about
Imtiaz,
that.
I did a pitch
Yes.
also.
Yeah,
Hold on, just
I have a question for Richa and Tanishta.
hold on. Can you stand up wherever you are? Yes.
I am Jyoti Venkatesh here, journalist. Question to Richa as well as Tanishta. Both of you are good actresses who acted in different kind of films of different genres. But can you tell me frankly, as actresses, whether it is different and difficult to act with a female director or with a male director? Because sensitivity is something different and mindset also
That's a
different.
good question. I'd like an answer as well. Is it different?
Working with the...
Please tell us the lie.
Trick question.
You got your answer.
Oh, I thought it's a conspiracy. Sir, hello. Jyoti Venkatesh, sir. Hi, how are you? Sir, my third big job in life was to work with a director called Meera Nair. It was just a short film, not released yet. And I observed how she walked into the set and how she commanded respect without ever raising her voice. And it was like a bustling crew which would often fall silent, but not out of fear, but out of respect. And she would be able to achieve whatever she wanted. And that taught me that I had been conditioned to believe that in order to get ahead, a woman has to be a bitch. You understand? And that, I'm really glad I broke that concept immediately, because I saw, okay, this woman is my director. She could also be my friend. She could also be maternal towards me. And I learned so much from that. So I think it's fun to work with a good director, irrespective of gender.
And Tanishta?
Yeah,
Sorry, I have the last question.
Tanishta, you are not replied.
Yeah, I would completely agree with Richa.
Tanishta, you are not replied.
What I
Yeah, she's replying if you let
That's
her.
what I'm replying, that I would completely agree with Richa. I've worked with both female and male directors, and I think it's very individual. It's not gender specific at all. You can have a very insensitive female director and a very sensitive male director, and vice versa.
Geraldine,
it's not
do you
gender
want to
specific.
say something to that?
Yes, this reminds me, just listening to the questions, of what often happens for us as professors, that even if we're talking about women's history or we're talking about women's subjects, that the questions are all dominated by men. And I keep wondering whether it's something that men can't resist, sort of stepping forward and being first. And there hasn't been, at least from my perspective, a question yet from a woman in the audience.
But there just have been...
एक complaint आई है. She wanted to ask a question, but her mic was passed on to him. Is this true?
Thank you.
All right, so we'll take your question, ma'am. I'll come back to you. Thanks for the gesture. Yes, ma'am.
It's really fascinating listening to this. So I'm coming from Canada, where as somebody who'd never done a film before last year, I too didn't think I was a writer, but we have organizations that support women in film. So my question here is, are there such organizations in India that support women in film? And because mentorship is a huge part of it. Is if you can find mentors within your field, they help each other. And I think that's how I've seen women get ahead, at least in North America.
I think there's a new one of cinematographers, DOPs that have come together to make a collective just last week, and they plan to.
And there's a
do
pre-existing
exactly.
one called Women in Film and Television.
Yeah. It's a worldwide organization. It's the same thing.
But you can call any of us. Yes. I offer women in the audience that maybe want to make a film, right? Yes. To reach out to. So that was an organization that helped me in my country. But I wonder, why doesn't it work that way in India?
Now you're here, you'll make it work.
Richa, do we see a collective emerging right here? Yes.
Sir, thanks for the very good gesture. Your question is the last one.
How do you visualize the face of women in films 5 years from now?
Who is this to? Tanishta.
Like I said, that I would want change through pop culture, because I think pop culture is a huge tool of the way things can change. So the way I visualize is to have very interesting characters of women and all kinds of characters being portrayed, the entire diversity, to celebrate like all kinds of women through cinema, through TV, and not just stick to the stereotypical roles that women play in films. And also to celebrate all kinds of different kinds of looking women, like whether it is skin tone, whether it's body shape, whether it's straight hair or curly hair or petite or tall, and just celebrate the entire gamut and diversity of how nature has created us, and not to make all of us look the same by keeping certain yardsticks of this is how beauty or images of women should be defined.
We've actually gone backwards on this. Sorry to cut you, but we had actresses like Madhubala, Nargis, Nutan, Meena Kumari, who could carry a film on their shoulders. They were there. Whether it was as early as Bandhani or Achut Kanya or Mother India, there were women who were strong and who were very, very loved. I don't think that, I don't see that kind of stardom. It's a much quicker FMCG category, I'm told, the Indian heroine.
I just want to add one last thing, because it always comes down to films, and that seems to be the center point. But we've been having a very, very interesting phase in the last 2 weeks, where I think it starts with the acknowledgement that women's issues seem to be at a flashpoint when it comes to the media. So be it the TVF Aruna Kumar controversy and sexual harassment being discussed as a debate, or be it, I've been wondering why Alia, who is such an immensely talented, brilliant and amazing actress, with a family to tell her and give her guidance, because she is within the industry, would do a Badrinath Ki Dulhania and putting it out there with the names. Or cut to, I'm just saying, let's just connect the dots, a Gurmehar Kaur who got trolled, because I regularly get trolled, because we can't miss out the fact that while the media seems to pick up on all these women issues and they put out all these open letters, when you look at the comment section, you will realize how little things have changed when it comes to the larger masses and numbers, because the haters can really mess with you in terms of putting you in your place when you come from this gender. So the point I'm trying to make here is, and Gurmehar Kaur, because it's a political event, we are living in a very polarized world, so everything seems to go either this way or that way. Interestingly, I noticed that ultimately what came down to how Barkha Dutt was actually teaching her to do all this. So it's very easy to pick up these demons and to demonize, I believe, this gender specifically. Now when I'm talking about the internet, it's not something we should miss out on, because it plays a very critical role in how we are shaping a whole generation. If you notice, most young girls from colleges who follow me, they all have private profiles. They are scared to even publicly be there. So while we like to think that things are changing in the urban space and all, I think it's maybe a topic for another day, where our and the social media really plays a very, very critical space. So if I'm getting rape threats on Twitter, if there's somebody watching out there and who is from Twitter, should know that those accounts should be just shut down, period, and no coming back after 2 weeks. So,
can I just add
something? Yes, Monica. Yes. Just the last minute. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, just to sum it up, I think the entire media and creative communication industry, whether it's advertising, television, or films, can play a huge role in actually addressing all the questions which were raised today, is representing women very subliminally in roles which are not make a big deal about it that I did this, and it should become a very natural progression in our society. Only will the actual grassroots change will happen.
So there we are at the end of this wonderful session. Too many of us And I hope there is something that threw up which you'll take home. Thank you very much to each one of you for being here.
Rather put it on digital and not worry about broadcasting.
Not at all, and even not,
not worry about the P&A.
Not even worry about the theatrical in case.
So that opens up a lot of opportunity for you as an actress.
Yeah, certainly.
And
that is always welcome. What I had noticed from a lot of films that I've done, one burns one's heart and soul in making a film, and then because the distribution or the P&A is not good enough, or it's an indie sort of film or a niche sort of thing, then it becomes extremely difficult to send that film out into the larger world. With the advent of digital stuff, it's become so much easier to be able to directly access your audience, and if it's good, then word of mouth sends the film into another orbit. As in the case of Chutney, it's at 47.5 or something million views. So we spent 0 rupees on advertising it, nothing at all. So yeah, I think it's just absolutely fabulous, both for the audiences and for the makers, because the audiences also don't want a overly marketed film which is pushed down their throats every single day. And the makers, of course, want to not spend additional money on top of the product. I'd rather spend on making a very good film than on just pushing it out there. So I think it's a win-win.
Raghav?
Yes, sir.
How about you? What are the differences that you've seen? You know, you were a struggling actor, then moved into the...
That's right.
Has that got anything to do with the social media presence?
Actually, no, the money was really good. There wasn't anything else to it. Telugu is a very cash-rich business. I do think the cinema is rather formulaic, but yeah, you know, you need to...
But did you get any international offers based on your social media presence?
No, I think largely it was based on what people perceive to be talent, but not really on the basis of social media presence. No.
Okay. So you're good to stay in a regional space, Vivek, and you think that it is going to, the alternative content also that you're creating.
So that's another thing that you can keep in mind. You can't rely on syndication, of course, because it depends on the appeal of your content. And if you make something that flops, no one's going to pay for it. For film promotions, using YouTube as a film promotion platform, so a lot of people would pay for that. On top of that, there's selling rights to your content, say music rights. If you have a web series and you have some original music in that, you can release it on Apple Music Store and these kind of things. So there's a lot of ways that you can earn money from your content apart from YouTube advertising. So it's important to keep it in mind.
I don't
right
think
now.
you imagine the success that Chutney would get.
No.
Was it because of the internet penetration?
Absolutely. It's on YouTube, free for anyone to view, and no clue. Absolutely none. I think we were just very focused on making this story. I think Also, what's interesting about a platform like YouTube and the digital space is that everyone can find their own kind of content. You know, it doesn't have to be that one big blockbuster film. There's micro content, so a short film is like a bikini. Because it is so short, it has to be so precise. So I think it's precisely to the people who like it, they will watch it. And if you don't like it, you won't get the number of views that you want. And that is the magic of it, that you can reach your target audience, your TG, very, very precisely. I like that part about the digital platform very much.
Over to you, Paula. What do you see? The difference between the emergence of premium platforms on localized content, right? And Vivek, guys like Vivek are going to create more and more alternative content. Guys like Raghav is going to create more and more content. Raghav, of course, is a multi-talented guy. I mean, do you see it is important to have multi-skill sets to be successful on digital?
Yes, it is.
Commercial, Bollywood, you've done television, you're doing digital content now. Did you ever feel that you didn't have the creative accomplishment or as a talent that you are aspiring to see that when the digital has emerged? For example, your chutney is a good example. Does it give you more appetite to go and create such content?
I'm not
all
sure.
The dreams that you had, that you would have wanted to create, act in a certain character, you would have missed out those opportunities. Do you see digital giving that opportunity to really live those dreams out there?
Yes, absolutely. I think this piece that I used to perform 15, 18 years back, Chutney, I used to perform it as a monologue at the Platform Theatre in Prithvi. When I was starting out, we were not even given slots inside Prithvi. And we wrote it then and as a short film and put it on YouTube, and it did well. So yes, I do see that. I think largely what works on the internet, from whatever little I understand, is there has to be a great deal of passion behind what you do. That will find resonance and its own sort of audience. So certainly it is, you can create content that you've always aspired to, and if it doesn't work for whatever reason, it's not like a year and a half gone into the production and that kind of many crores gone into the making of a feature film. So it's easier off the shelf. And you, as Paula mentioned, that it's extremely gratifying for a performer, because you know immediately and instantaneously. And also the whole system of films is where there's a whole lot of hogwash. When a film comes out, you hear 100 crores, 200 crores, 500 crores, etc. You don't know how much of that is true, not true, how many of those numbers are fudged. No one really knows the back end of films, the distribution end. Whereas YouTube is extremely transparent. You know, you see a clear scenario of how your views are going, what times your film is viewed at maximum, what is the demographic of the people. The algorithms tell you a lot of details, which is very interesting. So I like that whole idea of knowing exactly who your audience is and what they liked, and there are the whole comment section will tell you what they liked, what they didn't like. So it's almost like having a private interface with your audience, which for a performer, it's as close to theatre as possible, except in a theatre you can seat a maximum of, the largest audience I've ever performed to is 2,000 people at Stanford. Beyond that, I've not performed to a bigger audience than that. So I think YouTube in that sense has a quality of theatricality to it, to performing to a live audience in a way that it's very direct, very quick, very immediate and very transparent. So that's the beauty of it.
No, I agree with you, but these days I see a lot of creators fudging the views there also, because they push a lot of advertising there. To have those,
sure. I'm quite unaware of all of that, because we're quite new in that sense. But I've heard of that too, that you buy views, etc.
It's not buying actually. They push the ads to reach to the X amount of views. That also helps the video to go to a trending mode, suggestive, then goes into the trending mode. So, but having said that, digital as such, can help you even stop fudging those numbers at the theaters. That's the good news. And if you look at the success that Marathi cinema like Sairat has seen, you wouldn't have seen those numbers 5 years ago. It's the transparency that's come into the system by the internet penetration and stuff like that. Vivek, as a maker, I was just wondering, do you have any suggestions for alternative content makers? Do you have any suggestions for alternative creators?
Well,
alternative cinema creators?
For alternative creative, for alternate content, for the originals, I would just try to say that keep making up the good stuff, live up to the expectations, and match the standards that the Netflixes and the Amazons. Of course, you need the money, and no Indian platform gives that sort of money, but I'm sure times are here to change. In terms of filmmakers, I would only advise them to concentrate on their content, keep the budgets very rational, start editing the screenplay so that you waste very little resources, and use all that is available to us, right from the script labs to the film festivals to all platforms, so that you can...
I guess one thing that I wanted to point out is
Chutney was, am I audible? Yeah. Am I audible? Can you hear me? I get the feeling that, yeah, now. Chutney was one of the most amazing experiences because, purely because it was very virgin territory as far as I was concerned. I had never, I was personally pushing a lot of boundaries because I hadn't ever written. I'd written a book, but nothing, nothing in fiction. So that was amazing. I never produced and not done such a tough role, which was physically so transformative. So in 3 or 4 ways, it was extremely challenging for me. It was a very stretching period. It's very gratifying to know that it has done so well and reached so far. And as far as more stuff on the web, whether it's, there's one script which we have ready for a web series, there's 2 short films which are ready, and there's a feature that I'm working on, but not for the web, that's a regular feature film. So yes, it's been very encouraging, and I'm writing quite a lot at the moment. I've worked with one, it wasn't really, was it in independent? Highway was independent? Yeah, okay, so I don't know the difference between what is independent Marathi and mainstream Marathi. I thought Girish and Umesh Kulkarni were fairly mainstream, right?
Yeah, in terms of actors, they're mainstream. It just meant the kind of production. It wasn't a studio film, right?
Yeah, it wasn't a studio film. Yeah, okay. So it was really, really great because also they had a lot of people from FTII. Sudhakar Reddy, who was our DOP, who also then went and shot Sairat, had invented these beautiful lights which they used inside the car because the whole journey of Highway was inside we shot inside vehicles. So they devised a lot of interesting ways to do sound and camera and lights. That was wonderful. And they're really, really bright guys, and I really enjoyed working with them.
I have a question for Tisra as well as Vivek. I have seen Tisra, most of your films, including the web series Technique. You are a good actor indeed. And Vivek has seen most of your Marathi films as well as a producer, though I missed your Kannada film. The question to both of you is, would you consider a role reversal and Tisra taking up direction of a web series and Vivek taking up direction of a film?
You want to answer? So, well...
Sorry, मैं आपका सवाल नहीं समझी. मतलब झूठ कैसे हो सकता है? I'm not sure I understand.
Is that a question to her? हमसे पूछ रहे हैं, can I answer that? Yes, those views are true. They are not fake. Trust me. The point is whether it's a pull or a push. Did somebody look for the video or somebody pushed the video at you? That's all.
I have a question for Vivek.
take your video off. Yes. So we, being evolved in that, on that platform, we being an MCN, yes, there are a lot of, mischief that goes on the platform, and they keep on innovating.
So to that, content is always in danger of either being pirated or people, sort of subverting it here and there and doing different kinds of things. I think not to get distracted by that kind of thing and just really make good stuff that you believe in, and it will lead to organic views and organically things doing well. And then one should not worry too much about, of course there'll always be a cheater in class. वो तो हमेशा ही होगा. तो बेटर है कि आप अपनी पढ़ाई करके अच्छे से जाएं, अपना काम करें, एंड होपफुली इट विल डू वेल. तो ज़्यादा ना सोचें कि इधर उधर क्या हो रहा है.
Hello, I have a question for Vivek. Vivek, can you please comment on Marathi feature theatrical distribution? Because most of the Marathi filmmakers, they themselves have to distribute their films. And you must be aware how it happens in the rural center, how filmmakers get cheated by the exhibitors, that number of seats.
Practice for Lokmat. So over the last 21, 22 years, I've been involved in digital media and mobile entertainment space. So I've come across, this is a very unique case across various formats. So at one end of the ecosystem, we have talent. So each one of you on the stage today is a talent. Someone
would you like
is
to
writing.
stand up? We can't see you.
Oh, sorry. So someone is writing, someone is acting. So each one of you are a part of a creative talent industry, right? And on the other hand, you have large aggregators and distribution partners. So each of you, so for example, you are engaged in the process of creating excellent content. And on the other hand, you have distributors who have the ability to upscale your content from a consumption perspective and make money for you. I've always seen that there is a divide which still exists between you and the ability to scale up the business in terms of making it more sensible from a monetizing perspective. So as you scale up from, say, a movie which did 44 million views without you really having too much of understanding, say, for example, of digital, but purely on the merit of content. But as you go into making more web series, etc., how do you see bridging this divide between creative talent and distribution and monetization?
It's a good question. I'm not sure that I have the answer because I would have done it by now, had I known. But we're exploring. Some of the people on this panel are already succeeding in doing that. We're in the process of setting up our own platform. My company is called The Eastern Way, and we're looking at branded content. The conundrum still is how do we reach advertising agencies, do we reach brands individually, how do we do that? And that has been something I've been trying to do for the past 2 odd months, trying to reach out to people and see. There have been queries from some brands who've asked us if we would make something for them which would reach 47 million. And of course, the answer was, I really can't promise you any numbers as such, because how can you do that? We could promise you a really good film that you might enjoy watching, but beyond that, one can't really say. So yes, I can't really answer that question entirely. I answered it because I thought you were looking at me, but perhaps those two people over there and this fine gentleman here might be better equipped to answer that in terms of how it can be monetized, and Whacked Out Media is also monetizing it beautifully. I think keeping costs low is one. Beyond that, Paula?
Yeah, Ram, of course, you would be able to answer this because you are, you're putting out 800 videos a day, right? So
yeah, so
YouTube isn't just going to give you money. You have to sign up for monetization. Yeah. Huh. So maybe I'll explain then how the YouTube advertising works.